So today we are going to learn about RESTful API architecture using a three-tier system, namely client, server, and a database. So first we are going to need is a client. We are going to need a client that we are going to build it using React. The next thing that we need is a web server that has APIs defined. Now this web server we are going to build using Node.js and Express.js. The next thing that we're going to need is a database. So this is a database. Yes. So because we are talking less about database today, I'll start with a basic few operations that we can have in database. So the first thing, normally we do a crawl operation in database. So we create, we read, we update, and we delete. So these are the four types of general operations that we do on database. So coming back to the first tier, which is client tier. So a client app will send a request to a server, which is usually an HTTP request, request, which is a normal HTTP request, and it is normally done using Axios from a front-end side. Now a client send requests like get, post, patch, put, and delete to server. So normally it sends an HTTP request, and within this request we can send different type of requests, categorizing them into the type of action that we want to perform. So get, post, put, patch, and delete. So whenever we send this request using a client, so if the request is valid, we'll now usually get a response from a server. We'll usually get a response back from a server, which is usually in JSON format. We can send an entire HTML article or other things that we want, but generally the standard thing that a server sends to a client is a JSON format, and so this is the client and server part. So basically client sends an HTTP request using Axios. This request can be of different type, namely get, post, put, patch, and delete. And Node server or Express.js servers, it receives the request, processes them, and send a response back in a JSON format. Now here is what happens in client in server. So a server has a list of endpoints defined. So server has a list of API endpoints that defines route, that defines a specific route, routes, and listens to request of the specific request that the client has made. So now we'll discuss about building a route for this specific purpose. So for this endpoints, because the user has this 5 kind of requests, so we'll be using building for those same. So in this using this 5 endpoints, we will have 5 different routes. So namely post. Now there is a reason why I have wrote post here first. Get, put, patch, and delete. So these are the routes that we are going to create at this endpoint based on this request. So for mapping this, so using these routes, we have to perform some operations on database. So this is the same cycle where server send request to a database, and database gives a response back. It gives a response back. So using this, so these are the routes that we have created just now. So to map these routes, normally for a post request, we create an action. We create this operation in database, and for get we do read operation. For put we do an update operation. For patch we also do an update operation, and for delete we just do a delete operation. Now a good thing that we need to know about these routes are the get route can also be categorized into index. One thing I'll explain them: index or so. So now what is so? Index and so, it has different meaning. So usually an index is something. So whenever we do a get request, so whenever we perform a get request and it performs a read operation on database, so if we are returning a list of data, this get route is called an index route. And whenever we need a specific data, this get route that performs a read operation is also called a so route. So that is a standard that we use in developer community. So now inside these routes inside these endpoints we define inside these routes. Now we define logic. We write logic for how to get data, how to receive data. So all the business logic goes inside these routes. And this is basically how a REST API works in a 3-tier system. So to summarize, we have a client that sends an HTTP request, normally by using Axios. The different kind of requests that we can send are get, post, put, patch, and delete. Now whenever a server receives a request, it processes them and sends the response in a JSON format. Now in a server, we define something called API endpoints, that defines what kind of route that we use, and it also listens to that specific request. Now in endpoint, we map endpoint to the routes that perform some operations in database. Those operations are called CRUD operation, and within this routes we define the logic and business logic that we do to receive the data from database, request it from database, and send it back to client. And this get request usually is also called index and so. Or get route is called index when it responds a list of data, when it has to respond a list of data. But when we have to respond just a specific data, which is normally done by using an query parameter, we call it a so get route. So this is how a RESTful API works in a 3-tier system. If you have any doubts, you can write your doubt in the comment section. Thank you so much for your time today.